This is Wade, and you are in Wade World. Today, we are going to address something that affects a lot of you, but you do not understand it. And that is the fact that you cannot say race doesn't exist. Race is a social construct. I don't see race and expect to live a healthy life. A healthy life. What does Wade mean by this? All of modern medicine ignores the absolutely crucial fact that your race plays a huge role in the kind of medical treatment you require. Of course, if your legs gets chopped off, everybody requires the same treatment, but we are talking about your deficiencies. And a lot of you who have problems psychologically, mentally, you go to a therapist to talk it out like a woman or a little girl, cry it out. That is all useless. A lot of these issues are because of your hormones. Now, what does Wade mean by this? And before you get triggered, you know this is the truth, you can look around it. For example, people who have adapted and evolved to live in the colder climates of the earth have also adapted and evolved to weather 6 to 8 months of zero vitamin D production even when the sun is shining. That means countries like Canada, northern US, Russia, almost most of northern Europe, all of Scandinavia, etc. And on the South Pole near the Antarctic. So, if you are a pale skinned white person with light hair, light skin, light eyes, you require much less vitamin D supplementation to reach optimal performance levels. Now, if you put darker skinned people, whether they're Oriental, whether they're Middle Eastern, South American, or Africans, who are literally darker skinned in the same conditions, without giving them additional supplements, they will be miserable. This is a fact. If you do not believe Wade, there is a very interesting way in which even our lying society tells you this. Crime rates in all major northern multicultural towns across the world, especially even in the northern US, go down during the winter because we have seen that high testosterone coupled with low IQ, which is a factor, a massive factor in crime in the United States, perpetrated majorly by Africans, goes down when they don't feel like going out. And why won't they feel like going out? Because they don't have enough vitamin D in the winter. And it doesn't take a couple of centuries to adapt to these skin conditions, right? Whether this statistic triggers you or not is immaterial, it is an actual proof in this lying society. Another thing to talk about, a lot of studies say you require X amount of vitamin or mineral or whatever. But if a lot of these studies are race blind, they are bullshit. The amount of vitamin D required for optimal behavior among Europeans, Middle Eastern, South American, South Asians, Orientals, and Africans, and Aboriginals near the equator vary wildly. Wildly. A European, especially, let's take very cold countries, a Russian or a Swedish or a Finnish person, they can operate at a lower level of vitamin D, and they do not need as much vitamin D to operate at their optimum levels than someone living in Africa at the equator does. This is a fact. The entire skin color has evolved to optimize absorption of vitamin D. When there is no vitamin D or less vitamin D, you become pale. When there is too much vitamin D through sunlight, you become very dark. If you ever got out and got a tan, that is your body telling you. If you look at a different race which is default dark, that is their body adapting to their conditions, right? Secondly, if your studies are race blind, they are bullshit. The levels of hormones, the levels of immunity, and the levels of vitamins and minerals and everything else that you require to be optimally effective will vary across races. For example, why do we keep talking about vitamin D? Because vitamin D exposure and this vitamin, it's not really a vitamin, by the way. Vitamin D is a hormone precursor. It's not really a vitamin, they just call it that. When Europe was healthy and having lots of children, they used to supplement vitamin D specifically for children and everybody in the winter. In the 70s, marketing told you don't do that. And now we've come full circle. Collapsing birth rates, low testosterone among men, not having children, depressed, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, right? Now, there is one race or subgroup of a race, the only one in the world that can generate their own vitamin D even without sunlight or fish oil or cod liver oil. Do you want to take a wild guess what that race is if you've been paying attention? If you've been paying attention, what are the adaptations for maximizing vitamin D production in areas of less sunlight? What are they? Pale skin, light colored hair, light colored eyes. So, what is your guess? What is the one race that can actually produce their own vitamin D? If you said white, you're on the on the right path, but you're not actually 100% correct. It's not even blonde, blue-eyed people. It's gingers. Yes, it's gingers, red-haired, freckled, extremely pale, the palest of the pale. Gingers. Gingers can genetically produce their own vitamin D. Now, the reason ignoring race is stupid and unhealthy is because apart from all the stupidity that comes around with saying that a person, black person from Africa is the same as this white person from Finland, like with no difference in IQ, ability, and physical differences, genetics, or anything is absolutely stupid. Why it's unhealthy is because when you swallow that philosophy, you are also doing a disservice to yourself by being dishonest about your own racial genetics and what you require. And there is money to be made. There's no money to be made in what WAYDE is telling you. There's money to be lost in what WAYDE is telling you, but there's a lot of money to be made in telling you, like, yeah, just ignore it. You know, the black person requires just as much vitamin D as a white person from Sweden. You know, it's all superficial. Skin color doesn't matter. We're all the one race, the human race. No, that's stupid. And that is why a lot of scientists will come out and say, well, because they get paid to lie to you. They don't get paid to tell you the truth. Because if they told you the truth, you wouldn't need to spend money on stupid medication, absolute mentally ill therapists and psychologists who are not interested in helping you solve your issue. They're just interested in seeing you as a paycheck, in buying medicine that you don't need and going to the hospital. So they don't want to cure you. Remember, a cured patient is a lost customer. This is the world you live in. So when you ignore race, most of the advice you will get is going to be absolutely bloody horrible. For example, let us again take vitamin D. Almost all of you are vitamin D deficient. Almost all of you seeing this right now. And this has a lot to do with the industrialization of the world, we being indoors most of the time, not getting enough sunlight, and our foods actively not having vitamin D. The most active people right now on earth, on average, among all the races, are also those who are out in the sun all day and being active, whether it's people in Africa, people in places like Afghanistan, just people who don't spend the time indoors in front of computers or stuck to their screens. That is just an observation. So, let us suppose you take a study that was done in the United States, right? And they say, because they're not allowed to talk about race, they'd be like, we studied 1,000 subjects, male and female, between the ages of this and this. But they don't tell you, were they all white? Were they all black? Were they a mix of white and black? Were they Mexicans? Were there Chinese, Japanese people in there? Because they do not break down the results by the races, they just take an average of it. An African person requires much higher levels of vitamin D than a white person. If I take a white person and an African person, right? If I take a European and an African person, and I say, I've studied I've studied 200 people, 100 Europeans and 100 Africans. Same place, same African, same country. Same place, same European, same country. Similar genetics of each group to its own group. And you say, I've studied 200 people for vitamin D levels, and the average is this. You are wrong. You are stupid. And if you try to be honest, your funding is going to get pulled because being honest will cost you money and will cost the people who are paying you to lie money by not being able to sell fraud medicine to these people. So let us suppose a study is done, and we're going to take away all the nonsense. Let us suppose a study is done in the 1950s, before this really ramped up, this nonsense, in the United States. And that study said, we studied 1,000 people, 1,000 young men between the ages of 14 to 35, and 1,000 young women between the ages of 14 and 35. This is how much vitamin D is required for you to be healthy. Now you have to understand, back then, when they say that 1,000 young men, 1,000 young women, implicitly in 1950s America, they will mean the vast majority of them are going to be European white people. It's not, there might be one or two outlier minorities, but they're statistically insignificant. They won't skew the results. If I take 100 Europeans and one African and average out what vitamin D is required, the one African is not going to impact the results. If I take 100 Africans and put one Swedish white person there, that one Swedish person is not going to impact the overall results. Minute error, doesn't matter, right? So let's suppose today you're reading that study and you're like, all right, they said that human beings require X amount of vitamin D, so I'll start taking vitamin D. You can take that level and you will not feel the results. You will not feel the optimal results because they're lying to you. Or even when they were not lying to you, the study was not for you. This study was for them. So, regardless of how hurt your vagina is and how hurt your feelings are, if you ignore race, you will suffer, regardless of your race. Whether you're African, whether you're South American, South Asian, Middle Eastern, Oriental, European, North American, Slavic, Nordic, Alpinic, Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon, it doesn't matter. You have to understand medicine depends on your race. The levels of vitamins, minerals, food, supplements, sunshine, outdoor activity, thermoregulation, lung capacity, everything that you can do depends on your race. If you still get butthurt about it, you can look at the Olympics. Most of the people running fast are Africans. Now, we could look into if there is a bias against Europeans and other races, but biologically, Africans have evolved to run fast. Now, running fast doesn't build civilizations, it's a prey action. It's not a predator action. Almost all strongman competitions are won by Scandinavians. Predator, a lion. A lion doesn't run fast, but it is strong as hell. A deer runs fast because it's prey. It's not strong as hell, it has to run away. And running away doesn't build civilization. Neither does jumping high, right? You can accept that, but you can't accept the fact that races are unequal, then you are basically retarded. And if you're basically retarded, your health is going to be retarded as well. So, your health needs to be tailored to your genetics. Now, genetics is extremely important because, again, trying to keep this simple for you people out there, vitamin D deficiency is the most common cause of depression, hormonal imbalance, low energy, in men, low testosterone, in girls, low estrogen, and basically your whole mindset of I'm just a depressed person, this world sucks, and I'll write a long essay about it, or go through my life feeling miserable because I'm just that. No, you don't need to do any of that nonsense. You don't need to go to fat and mentally ill therapists and psychologists who will basically enable this nonsense. What you need to understand is your hormones are messed up. And the simplest way to fix your hormones in today's world is to fix your vitamin D levels. WAYDE can guarantee this. WAYDE can guarantee this. If most of you, go out and get your vitamin D levels checked today, you will be deficient. And interestingly, the levels for deficiency and sufficiency keep getting revised downwards. So even the people testing you are looking at data that is designed to tell you you are fine when, for example, you are sick. Great example. The testosterone levels of normal human men across races at their prime is supposed to be upwards of 700 nanogram per milliliter, ideally 900, upper range 1200. The lower range of that is sick, frail, old 90-year-old men who don't get any exercise, have bad habits, and are on the verge of dying, is 250 nanogram per deciliter. But modern medicine tells you if you are 17 years old and you have the testosterone levels of a 90-year-old frail dying man, 215 nanograms per deciliter, you are in the normal range. Do you understand? Even the test results are meant to keep you sick. So back to vitamin D. Go out, get your vitamin D tested, you'll be deficient. Then, what race are you? Be honest. And especially, this is going to be more towards Europeans because you guys have a suicidal, genetic, altruistic tendency to ignore race. No, no, no. Don't go against the bloody natural order because that is retarded. Darker races understand this implicitly. So, take your vitamin D test levels. If you are in a country that is majority white, understand that those test levels are geared towards white people. If you are in your own nation, historically, that's where your people come from, again, understand that the source material for the test ranges needs to be, you have to ask this, right? And a lot of the people, you ask the people testing at doctors, they'll say, I didn't think of that. That doesn't matter because these people are also average people getting a degree. Almost all the doctors in the world are not healers. Understand this. Healers understand holistically the whole picture. Most doctors are just now normal people who went through medical school and did enough sewing and cutting or reading to become slightly less retarded than you at pointing out, looking at your symptom, looking at something reference, and then telling you what medicine they are trying to give you. They can't heal you. So anyway, go to get your vitamin D tested, check your test levels. You will be low, most of you. If you are from any of the European races, Nordic, Alpinic, Caucasian, Mediterranean, Anglo-Saxon, whatever, find out what levels you need and optimize your levels of vitamin D accordingly. Now let's get back, let's go down to slightly darker races. If you're Middle Eastern, North African, South American, South Asian, and the upper part of South Asia, take your test levels, do your research, and understand that you probably need the maximum of the study recommended levels if that study was not done specifically in your country on your people. Oh, we should actually have gone to Oriental second. So we're going to go back and go to Oriental second. If you're Japanese, Chinese, Korean, whatever. Again, extrapolate the data that your people have done, your people, the studies that have shown the effects of vitamin D supplementation on your people, and supplement it according to yourself. It's probably why Japan has one of the highest and healthiest, longest living, healthiest living people in the world, because they're extremely homogenous, extremely race aware, and they only consider their people Japanese. They are the healthiest and the longest living. You can look it up. So we've gone through European races and their subclasses, Oriental races and the subclasses, tending towards the equator, tropical races and their subclasses, we can say, tending towards the equator. And then, if we go to the equator, we go to, if you're black, you're African, you're Aboriginal. Basically, skin color does tell you a lot about your race because it is an adaptation. In the vast majority of cases, it is an adaptation for your environment. So basically, if you are dark, if your skin is dark, you have to first of all figure out if anybody has done a study on your people in your country. Take that study and apply it. If you don't have access to that study, remember all of the other studies that you will look at, and if you're seeing this in English, you're probably going to look at English studies, which are predominantly for white people who are literally at the other end of the spectrum from you. So you have to take that study Take those dosages and modify them for yourself. This is a very simple test for you to understand and optimize your health. If your vitamin D levels are good, and a lot of people who live in tropical islands, if you are an African who lives in Africa and you're outdoors all the day, if you are in the Caribbean islands and you're outdoors all the day, you probably are not deficient in vitamin D because, again, it's a positive feedback cycle. You have a lot of vitamin D, you're energetic, your testosterone levels are high, you want to go out. When you have high energy, you don't want to sit at home, you don't want to sit in front of a computer, you don't want to sit in front of your cell phone, you want to go out and do things. You know what WAYDE is talking about. And because you have high energy levels, because of good vitamin D levels, you go out, you get sun, you get more vitamin D, higher levels, vitamin D, higher levels. It's a nice cycle. However, if you are in the north, if you are in northern US, Canada, Russia, northern Europe, Scandinavia, you will feel higher energy during summer. Most babies are created during summer and born during the winter, and you will feel your energy going down as winter approaches. And this is a fact about vitamin D. You can take it to the bank. Above 37 degrees latitude north, the sun will not be able to generate vitamin D on your body in winter. It has to do with the angle at which the sunlight hits you. The sun can keep you warm and you can look at it and be more cheerful psychologically. But the angle at which the sunlight hits you is insufficient to trigger the chemical reaction required. The wavelength of light itself in winter is insufficient to trigger the chemical reaction required in your skin to produce vitamin D. So, if you are in these latitudes, you don't have to be a depressed, fat, psychologically deep person. For example, most of the Russian authors like Dostoevsky, a lot of the things that they write about, they probably wrote during the winter when they were depressed as hell. If they just took some vitamin D, we wouldn't have all these things, a lot of which are basically depressing stories. If someone had been like, hey, stop writing that book, here, take some cod liver oil, take some more, you'd be like, I'm feeling good, man. I don't want to write this book. I want to go out and actually talk to people. Stop being the simp that I am, which Dostoevsky definitely was. So if you're in the northern country, northern latitudes, in the winter, understand, even if the sunlight hits your skin, this is going to be from October until probably April or May, depending on how high up north you are not going to get vitamin D from sunlight hitting your skin, even on the rare days that the sun comes out. So you have to supplement it by cod liver oil, fish oil, or whatever other ways you can supplement vitamin D. And you will see a marked difference and improvement in your energy levels, your libido, your mood, and your overall energy and enthusiasm for life. Now, it does, as all things happen, because you are in a depressive state, if you're vitamin D deficient, getting to a normal state is going to feel great. Once you're in the normal state and you have to continue these good habits, you will get used to it. So after some time, there's going to be a normalization. And you should crucially keep taking your vitamin D, regardless of whichever race you are. Because as human beings, we get used to feeling bad pretty quickly. We get used to feeling good pretty quickly. But if you reach from a deficiency to sufficiency and optimization of vitamin D levels and you're feeling good and that tapers off, and you decide to stop taking vitamin D, you will again notice that slowly you're back to a depressive state. So we get used to it quickly, but understand your new normal is not just normal, it's optimal. With a simple example of vitamin D, Wade has told you why ignoring race is stupid and unhealthy. And if you insist on ignoring race, you will be stupid and unhealthy. So ignore it at your own peril. We can address this more later, but for today, that is it. So until next time, keep yourself healthy, keep it cool, keep it smart, and as always, in Wade World, enjoy.